It's Wednesday night. Our show is brought to you each and every week by Kroger, where we talk about the latest and the greatest in Georgia football recruiting. What's signed, what's sealed, what's delivered, what's coming down the track. And we have a very special guest. And I guess I could be a funny, smart guy and say our special guest is a specialist, and that would be the next great kicker at the University of Georgia. Folks, give a happy before the Hedges welcome to Peyton Woodring out of Louisiana. He signed a week ago today to kick for the Georgia Bulldogs. How you doing tonight, Peyton?
Doing well.
So, guys, first of all, how's everybody doing on Facebook? Everybody doing on Twitter? How's everybody doing on YouTube? Hope everybody's having a great night and have a great Christmas season. I want to tell you this story of a young man from Louisiana. He's a baseball player. I think he told me one time he can throw about 85 or so off the mound, 82, 85, plays some third base. But he is the kicker signee for the University of Georgia and number one kicker in the country. Great intrigue here. It was a Georgia versus Alabama battle. He will not enroll early. Most of the class might enroll early, but not the future kicker. He's actually going to be in Orlando next week, beginning tomorrow, actually, for the Under Armour All-American game. But this young man, the state record holder in Louisiana, Peyton Woodring, chose Georgia over Alabama back in the summer. So everybody likes a good Alabama-Georgia battle. And I guess that's the first place to start. Peyton, take us through. It seems like your recruiting was one where both schools liked you. You both had to kick, but then all of a sudden, Alabama and Georgia kind of get in the ring there. What was it like trying to audition for both of those schools over the summer?
During the summer, they both had us do workouts, go and kick with other kickers across the country. So going through it, kicked both days at Alabama and Georgia. Kicked at Georgia June 2nd, and then kicked at Alabama June 11th. After the June 11th at Alabama, they ended up offering me the next day on Zoom. And then Georgia followed right after that.
And it was kind of a question where Alabama actually offered first, and it was Georgia kind of playing catch up a little bit. Like when you weighed out both schools, why was it Georgia in the end? What did you like so much about the Dogs?
I just like the environment around the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, Coach Smart, I preferred him, his intenseness, and also Athens sold it for me. Athens is a great college town. Loved everything about it. They were very inclusive to my family, and it was just a great fit all around for me.
I guess there's some intrigue here. Everything's signed and delivered now, so we can kind of declassify some of this information because Georgia flipped a lot of guys. There were a lot of former decommitments. One of the things that Peyton's story we will find is that Peyton was at one time a silent commitment to Alabama, and then I guess that's when Georgia really jumped in and started throwing haymakers in the ring, so to speak. And I guess you were silently committed to Bama, but when that Georgia offer came, it sounds to me like you're a very calculating young man that was maybe trying to get some leverage on the dream school with another school. Is that kind of what it felt like, maybe, and not what it actually was like?
Yeah, so I had done visits during the spring, and coming out of my visits, I knew I pretty much wanted to go to Georgia. That was my dream school. And after not getting the offer immediately, I went to Alabama pretty much to leverage, try to get the scholarship there and force Georgia to offer me. But once I got the Alabama offer, I felt I needed to lock it up, and I silently committed. And later that week, Georgia pushed really hard and decided that it was the best fit for me. And once I kind of figured that out, talked with my family, I knew that I wanted to go to Georgia, so I flipped my commitment.
Peyton, you committed, and then you took an official visit, I guess, 6 months later? I think you were the second weekend in December. What was your official visit to Georgia like? Did it check all the boxes? Was it all you thought it was? What were the highlights of it?
Yeah, it was awesome. Just getting to spend time with all the coaches and really the special teams coaches. I was able to spend a lot of time with Coach Cochran and Kirk Benedict and Coach Adam Ray. They really made it a special week and showed that I was at home there, and that's where I really wanted to be. And it made me feel better about it, for sure.
Does can you actually? I love this question here. How does it now? I guess there. I'm gonna get some into some deep kicker intrigue right now. 60-yard field goal, state record in Louisiana. How did that come to be? Had you been telling your coach in a certain situation, let me go for the record? Because I remember writing that story. It really meant something to you. You wanted to be that state title. I mean, not state title, but state record holder. You wanted that belt in your high school career. That was the goal. How did that come to be?
So before the season, I was kind of messing with my coaches, like, oh, let me take the state record. And then later in the season, actually the week before I kicked it, me and the special teams coordinator, we were just sitting around at lunch, and I was like, Coach, you gotta let me try it if I get the right yardage. And he was like, okay, we can do it, maybe. And came up in the game. One of my best friends intercepted the ball right before half, slid at the perfect yard line to beat the record by 1 yard.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So your best friend was in on it. One of your boys was in on it, right? He slid at the right yardage, huh?
Perfect yardage. Was able to do it. It was worked out really well.
So what's the rule in Louisiana? Is it a 1-inch tee, a 2-inch tee? What's the rule there?
You can use whatever inch, but I use a 1/4 inch, so it's kind of barely above the ground. It's just we play on a lot of grass fields, so that's why.
And what will that adjustment be like for you in college? Do you do most of your workouts kicking like you would, or competitions kicking like you would on Saturdays anyway?
Yeah, all of my other work is off the ground. That's the only time that I ever kick off the tee. So I've been kicking off the ground ever since the season ended, and before the season, I was kicking off the ground.
I guess, Peyton, one of the coolest things about your story is I think over the last week, it became clear that Jack Podlesny would not be back at Georgia for another season. And that certainly means that the kicking job becomes a lot more wide open for you. Did you get a sense that was going to happen, or is this just now a bonus where Georgia they had the special teams player of the year in the conference, and all of a sudden he was kind of an entrenched starter, and maybe you're going to have to be an apprentice for a year, and now that's no longer the case. You're going to certainly compete for the job. Does that amp up your excitement level about being a Bulldog now?
For sure. Being able to come in and compete early for the field goal job, be able to put points up on the board, and help my team hopefully that way was a big thing for me. And kind of coming into Georgia, I knew that Jack was probably going to be leaving. He had talks before, and so I'm excited now. Makes it a little bit easier to get in earlier. Just excited for it all.
What do you think? What do you think are your strengths as a player that you can bring to Georgia? I know, folks, where do you see this guy on kickoffs whenever he eventually starts launching them? I think your scouting report, everybody kind of touts you for your kickoff leg first and foremost. Maybe that's your biggest tool, but obviously you can kick a 60-yard field goal in Louisiana, so that's obviously nothing to sneeze at as well. Where does that come from, the leg strength on the kickoffs, and do you really think that's what you're best at?
Probably so. Probably my two biggest things would be kickoff, and I like dealing with pressure when the pressure's on. Like that's always been a big thing for me growing up through athletics. I enjoy the pressure. That's when I do my best. So getting in that moment with a bunch of fans, that's when I'm my best, and I'm excited to get there.
I got to ask you, it seems like when you were visiting Georgia, I think you took 2 visits for games. You end up hanging out with your snapper already, I think, and that's Will Snelling's, I guess, a little bit. How was that relationship formed? Have you guys had a chance to work out together, and like, how cool will it be to already have a guy you know really well coming in the same class as your snapper?
So I had met Will the day he actually got offered. I met him and started talking to him and try to convince him to come to Georgia. And just overall, over the few months that we've known each other, we've gotten close, and we pretty much plan on being roommates together later at Georgia. And it's always a good thing to be really close with your long snapper, develop a good connection. We've already started working together at these different camps all over the country.
What do you think he does well? Is it pop time? Is it getting the ball? Have you had a chance to see what he's capable of and see what his skill set looks like?
He throws the ball really hard, and also on his field goals, he's really accurate. He's a big dude, so he'll be able to help with blocking as well.
What do you say you like best about being a Bulldog? Is there 1 or 2 things that stand out to you?
Um, just being a part of a program that wins, knows how to win, continues to win, being successful at everything, and also them paying attention to the little details is also a big thing for me, which is something that Georgia does very well.
What's your, I guess, impression of the kicker legacy at Georgia? I think a couple years ago, Hot Rod Blankenship might have been the most popular player on the team, and now J-Pod has established a great legacy as well. I mean, pretty much no slouches kick at Georgia. What's it like, kind of following in there, I guess, plant steps at Georgia as a kicker?
There's a standard there, which I'm excited to uphold. There's been great kickers before me. Plan's always to beat them, though. I want to be the best kicker that's ever kicked at Georgia. That's the goal. So just keep working at that and try to create my own legacy there, just like they've created theirs.
Now, if I remember correctly, you weren't a kicker your entire life, right? You were thinking you were a soccer guy, right?
Yes, sir. I played soccer all the way up. Didn't really play football. Didn't really enjoy football. Wasn't even going to play football in high school. Coach convinced me to come out, and they ended up needing a kicker. So I had played soccer my whole life, so I started kicking the ball freshman year.
Not too bad. So you've only been kicking like 4 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you give the people at home maybe an impression of how much different it is to be a kicker and to earn a scholarship? Because it's basically like you got to go to a lot of these kicking camps to get a reputation. You got to get rated. You got to, basically everybody looks, and you may have 5 stars next to your name, and you may have the longest field goal and the best kicking performances, but it really all it comes down to are those camp sessions with everybody watching. Like how daunting is that?
It's there's a lot of kids, a lot of kickers, and you got to go travel the country to all these camps and compete against the best to prove you are the best. Kicked against hundreds of kickers. It's just if you're good at your job and you keep on, you just got to beat everybody, prove yourself that you're the best.
Can you imagine what it would be like if, like, for instance, Georgia was looking at 15 quarterbacks and they all work out that one day, and the quarterback that threw the ball the best that day would get the scholarship offer? I mean, you guys are wired to deal with that pressure, and I mean, like, you could have been, the second coming of Justin Tucker, but like if you had a bad day, that offer wasn't coming. What's that pressure like?
It's the pressure that I'm gonna have to deal with on game days. Kicking in front of 93,000 in front of Sanford and all the big stadiums in the SEC. That honestly isn't. It's going to be nothing compared to all that. So that kind of is going to prepare me for what I have to do later in my college career.
All right, guys. We got a few minutes more with Peyton. Anybody on YouTube, anybody on Facebook that has a question for the young man, future next grade kicker at Georgia, feel free to fire away. You guys know I got tons of questions here on Before the Hedges, but I'd like to have you guys get a chance to talk to the next young man on his way to play for the University of Georgia as well. Peyton, while we wait for everybody to chime in with their questions, you got a feeling, you got a prediction for the Chick-fil-A Bowl this week? What do you see happening here? Now, don't tell me Georgia hits 10 field goals and Ohio State hits 7 field goals. Don't give me one of those kicker-friendly predictions. What do you see happening in the Peach Bowl?
I think that we're definitely going to win. I feel like we're more physical than them, and that's going to help us win and ultimately get us to the national championship, where be 2-time national champs back-to-back.
That's got to be crazy. What's it like living in Louisiana and being a dog, man? I mean, it helps that they're the defending national champions, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome, especially when they beat LSU in the SEC championship.
Did your buddies hear about it that week? Did you give them a little grief about it?
For sure, they heard about it for a few weeks after that.
And you folks, I want you to really understand this. Like, kicker is a very hard job. Like, really, Peyton, I think you told me you did this. You basically know at the beginning of a recruiting cycle before your senior year, you know which schools are going to have a kicker opening and which schools aren't. Like, you could be the biggest USC fan in the world or the biggest Baylor fan in the world, and your parents could have went to Baylor, but if they've got a scholarship kicker in year 2, that's just not going to happen for you. I mean, is that the way you do? Like, you scout and map out all the schools that might have an opening, and that's how maybe there's 10, maybe there's 15, and you probably started working from the top down with Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, there's a kind of got to search for who's actually looking for a kicker in that age group, and you got to spend your time because you have to travel to the campus to kick for them. So you got to weigh out what all the who all the roster situations and who all has a scholarship available.
Peyton, lots of questions coming in. Scott Harrison says, DawgNation is glad to have you. Van West says, I love it that you thrive on pressure, great attitude. Ryan S. Walker says he's definitely impressing this fan base with that answer. Leon White has a good one. Do you have like a process for like kicking game winners? Like, what do you not think about anything? Do you just go through your steps? Like, what do you do? Like, I remember that baseball movie, Clear the Mechanism. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about there, but what do you do before a big clutch kick to get your mind right?
Really just breathe and focus on. I put so many hours into it, doing the same thing over and over again. Just being able to do that exact same process, no matter what, no matter when, the pressure, that can't let it affect you. And just have to focus on putting the ball through the uprights no matter what.
This question comes from Henry Carter. Peyton, do you like to do pin kicks to keep the opposing team in their end zone? Do you like to directional kick, or what's your preference?
I like to just kick it out the back of the end zone, personally. I don't like to give them a chance to return, but also I do think it's pretty effective whenever you pin kicks and get some good hang time on it to where your defense can go down and tackle them.
Have you ever punted? You ever done that before? Is that a transferable skill?
It is, but also actually long snap for my high school. We have a really, really good punter, so I don't even punt at my high school.
Oh, wow. Don't even have to punt at your high school, huh?
No.
You long snap for your punter? Are you serious?
Yeah.
How many times have you had a chance to make a tackle downfield? I mean, like, what's that like for a kicker?
3, and my last game I hit someone kind of hard, pretty hard for a kicker.
Oh man, pretty hard for a kicker. Man, that must have left a bruise.
It did.
Something. Is there a team you're looking forward to playing? I mean, certainly when you play Alabama one day, the big ball game, that's gonna be, I guess, sentimental, or at least I guess monumental to face the Tide one day, knowing that you could have played for either team.
Them. Also, I have a few friends playing in the SEC. Been kicking with them forever. They're both one's going to Tennessee, one's going to Vanderbilt, so get to play them every year. And also LSU, just being from Louisiana and 45 minutes from campus, kind of feels good to play them.
What do you feel about how it's impossible for a kicker to get a 4-star or a 5-star rating? You know what I'm talking about there, like from the national services? I mean, you're the number 1 kicker in the country and you're a 3-star. You're one of the few 3-stars in the Georgia class, except on the specialty kicker ranking services. What do you feel about that? You got a reaction to that? What goes through your mind when the best you can do is be a 3-star?
I mean, not really, because it doesn't really matter once you get there. Once you get to rankings, don't really matter. They don't really affect you or whatever. As long as you put the ball through the uprights more times than not and do it a lot, doesn't matter, because they're all going to need you whenever you need that big kick.
That's right. Barry Tenahan has a question. He wants to know, when an opposing coach tries to freeze you, does that really make any difference?
I enjoy getting like that. I enjoy that because I get to warm up a little, swing the leg a little, breathe and relax. I don't have to rush out onto the field. I get to take my steps back nice and calm coming off the timeout. So I actually enjoy when they call timeouts.
So how about this? I'm sure we've got some junior kickers watching, or maybe some moms and dads of young football players, maybe young soccer players. Were you a center mid? What were you? A striker? What did you play? Center mid. So you know he's a great athlete, guys, already. But, like, what's your advice to somebody that wants to give kicking a try? Like, what would you tell them to do maybe at a certain age, or how they can really get engrossed in being a kicker one day?
Really just going out there and kicking, trying to learn the basics of it, watching YouTube videos or getting a private coach. That's really it. Just in loving to work, because you got to kick a lot by yourself. It's more of a lonely thing because nobody can go out there and kick with you. And all the pressure is on you, so you got to be like the pressure.
Question from Leon White. He wants to know, is it every kind of kicker's dream to get a fake field goal run or a fake field goal pass? What, have you thought about that yet? Did your coach put that in the playbook at all?
100%. That's the best. We had a failed PAT this year, bad snap or whatever, and I got to try and run it in. And then last year I got to throw for one. So that's always the dream, is to get one of those.
Now, did you score those, or what happened on those plays?
My knee went down at the half-yard line on the run, and then I ended up completing the pass.
Wow, there you go. Peyton, let me take a quick look on YouTube, see if you have any questions on YouTube. How fast are you? They want to know if you're a fourth down sneak option or something like that. How fast are you?
I mean, I'm not the fastest dude. I'm not going to claim I'm the fastest dude, especially not on our roster, but I wouldn't say I'm.
Does kickers get timed in the 40? Do you even bother with that or no? Because you can kick the ball.
I don't bother with that. No.
You're probably like, let's see how fast I can kick it 40 yards rather than me run it 40 yards. That's probably the way to go.
I'm probably no smart of speed either. That dude was fast.
That dude was a lot of fast. How far can you kick kickoffs? What do you think your median average is?
Probably average would be 74, 73 yards. But whenever I get a hold of them, they probably get up to 80. My big thing is hang time. I get really good hang time on my kickoffs.
So what's an excellent number for a hang time on a 70-yard kick? What's an excellent number there? Probably
a 70-yard kickoff. I usually get around 4.3 to 4.4, but anything over 4.0 is really good. If you're getting in the 4.4s, it's pretty high.
Peyton, why do you think Georgia wanted you so bad? Did they tell you, was it certain things that they liked about you besides your personality, your strong leg? What do you think was the reason Georgia came after you so hard?
I think my athleticism was one thing that really they liked about me, and also my body. I could put on weight, put on mass, getting there and get in better shape. So they liked that I had more potential to get better too.
Height and weight, where are you at right now?
Probably 5'11", 180. Goal's to get up to 190. It's what my personal goal is.
Wow, 190-pound kicker. There you go. That sounds like Georgia and the Dogs. They got the most advanced evolution of the player at every position. You're going to be the Darnell Washington of kickers, man. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think you've seen any 6'5" kickers anywhere, have you?
No, they're not running around these all over.
Well, Peyton Woodring, man, awesome having you with us. It's been great hanging out on Before the Hedges. I hope you guys got a chance to chat with him. Really special young man, really cool young man, and everybody feels like they've had a glass of ice water now after talking to you, because young man has ice water in your veins, man. Peyton, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being a part of Before the Hedges tonight. And I guess I'll see you in Orlando in a couple of days.
Sure. Thank you.
Take it easy, Peyton. All right, guys. That was another DawgNation conversation here on Before the Hedges. I'm Jeff Sintel. This show each and every week is brought to you by Kroger. I'd like to thank our sponsors. It eventually becomes a podcast as well. You guys have a question, feel free to drop them down below. But while I do, we still have our normal staples of Before the Hedges. Last week, we had a top targets list that consisted of 3 names. Jordan Big Baby Hall was the number 1 name on the list, and he signed with Georgia last Thursday. And a great announcement. Did everybody see the huge Georgia hat that he wore? He wore when he made his announcement. I thought that was pretty cool. Like the ones that showed up when Georgia beat LSU for the Peach Bowl. That's pretty funny. But guys, obviously Kroger, you think of Kroger, you think of this time of year. Kroger Chef Junior, that's their program. You can go to Kroger Chef Junior, Google it on your devices or whatever. They got a program. It's each and every week. Check your local Kroger stores or check Kroger.com. Chef Junior. You come in. They have a plan. They'll teach you how to cook a meal. Some materials are provided, and it's a great way to get those young folks in their house cooking their own dinner and everything else like that. Speaking of, let's take a look. It's a very shortened top targets list. It's down to 2. for the class of 2024. I think I've seen some questions popping up in the feed already. One of the things I think is everybody has a question about Raymond Cottrell right now, and my best answer to that is I think he has decided to wait until the traditional signing period to make his decision. I believe that was his decision to make in terms of what he wanted to do. Obviously, Georgia has added some transfer receivers out of the portal. They signed 3 terrific receivers as well. Check out the top 2 targets. Number 1, another young man that will be at the Under Armour All-American game in Orlando this weekend for the next few days. I think the game's on January the 3rd, but the Under Armour All-American game starts off with Media Day tomorrow. DawgNation will be there. I'll be hopping on a plane from Atlanta in a few hours, but Deuce Robinson's your number 1 remaining top target, the 5-star tight end. That's the number 1 tight end in the country. And then the number 2 target is 4-star tight end Walker Lyons, the number 5 tight end in the country out of Folsom, California. Looks like the most important restock remaining for Georgia is at the tight end position. Let's take a look at the 2023 recruiting breakdown. Georgia is a number 2 team in the class nationally. Look at that, 25 signees, 2 remaining commitments in Jamal Merriweather and Raymond Cottrell. Reminder, Jamal Merriweather also intends to sign with Georgia during the traditional period, just waiting on some academic scores and transcripts there. I think he needs to take his ACT and get the scores back. He's already taken the ACTs. 2 transfers. The class right now sits at 14 offensive signees. 12 offensive signees, 2 offensive commitments, 14 defensive signees, and 1 special teamer. You guys met him earlier tonight in Peyton Woodring. 5 guys in state, 24 guys out of state. There are 2 5-star signees. Look at this. This is what really intrigues me. 2 5-star signees in the class. 2 of them are on defense. 4 top 50 signees. All 4 of those are on defense. You guys see a trend here. There are 11 top 100 signees. 9 of them are on defense. There are 14 top 150 signees, and those same 9 are there on defense. There are 18 signees in the there are signees in the SEC footprint. There are 8 players in the class beyond the SEC footprint. 0 offensive players among the 5 highest rated commits in the class. 2 offensive players in Monroe Freeling and Tyler Williams among the 10 highest rated commitments in the class. 10 defensive players among the 8 highest rated. There are 10 commitments from the state of Florida. State commitments is interchangeable there with signees. Checking out the class breakdown, they have 1 running back, 1 signed, 6 wide receivers, 5 signed, 2 tight ends, 2 signed. They're looking to add 1 to 2 more. 3 offensive tackles, 2 were signed. 2 cornerbacks, both of those are signed. 3 DBs, all 3 of those are signed. 1 safety, that's Janelle Aguero, he's signed. Peyton Woodring, the kicker, that is signed. No quarterbacks, 2 interior offensive linemen, both signed. 3 linebackers, 3 edge, all 3 signed, and 2 defensive linemen, they are both signed. It's that time of year when everybody's going to start looking at the 2024 class. I think this is our 4th version, actually. Daniel Calhoun there. You've got Papa Afua, another name right there to take a look at as well in the class. Cam Pringle, Charles Lester, Jared Gibson, KJ Bolden, Peyton Woodard. Now, that's a similar name to our special guest tonight. Peyton is actually going to make his decision on January the 7th. That's actually the biggest upcoming decision for folks that follow the Georgia football program. Peyton Woodard is going to make his decision at the All-American Bowl out in Texas. I will be out there as well. You got Mike Matthews, 5-star athlete, and the 5-star edge, Edric Houston, who I think will eventually choose between Georgia and Ohio State there. We've got some guys off the list here. You got Sammy Brown, Evan Brown Schuler, DeAndre Carter, King Joseph Edwards, CJ Jackson, that's the unranked young man out of Tucker, DeMello Jones, Cam McCall, Dwight Phillips, Dylan Stevenson, Jalewis Solomon, and Fletcher Westfall. Just some names to know already in the class of 2024. Let me take a quick lap around the comment sections for everybody to make sure I've got everything. Hope you guys liked and enjoyed the interview there with Peyton Woodring as well. Also, let me check Facebook. Anthony White, thank you for the kind sentiments there. Let me see. Wade, Josie, Mike Mazzell, how are you doing? Everybody's got a few Matt Landers comments watching him play tonight for Arkansas. Great to see that young man develop the way he has. The longest field goal, Becky Rutledge, was he kicked a 60-yard field goal in Louisiana to set the state record. That thing would have been good from probably 62 or 63 yards. Lots of good dudes in this class. Lots of the way Georgia's built. I think they have certainly filled their needs as well as anyone in the class. And with that, guys, I just wanted to say thanks again to everybody for joining us on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Follow along on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on the Apple Podcast platform, and on Spotify to keep up with the Before the Hedges and DawgNation weekly Before the Hedges podcast. It was great having Peyton Woodring on. Great young man, I think, that will represent Georgia on the field with some excellent play, but also off the field with class and character. Thanks to everybody that's been hanging out and watching Before the Hedges again tonight. I'm Jeff Sintel. There's a big ball game coming up. I've got to get on a flight. Hope you guys have a great night, and we'll see you guys again soon on the pages of DawgNation.com.